Adrian Cole stood at the window, tracing the outline of Lake Washington with tired eyes. The morning sun cast a bright sheen across the water, but inside his mansion, something felt wrong. The air wasn't just silent, it had a weight to it, a hush that seemed to press against the floor and linger along the baseboards. He glanced around. Ava's sketches were gone from the fridge, replaced by an empty whiteboard with nothing written on it. Noah's teddy bear lay folded on the shelf, as if someone had made him put away his childhood. Even the old wall clock taught Adrian's eye it ticked, but the hands were fixed at 9.
I told you exactly what to do, and you failed. Don't bother coming back until it's handled.
Always 9, never moving forward. The truth was hiding in these small details. This kind of silence is never peaceful. It's the kind that hides the truth in the shadows and makes revenge start to whisper in the corners. Moving away from the window, Adrian listened for laughter. The house used to ring with Ava's stories and Noah's squeals, always bouncing between rooms. Now, the only noise was the faint buzz of Bianca Marlowe's phone as she scrolled through her latest social media feed. Her voice as sharp and polished as the glass table topped. Every time she entered, Ava tensed up, and Noah clung harder to his bare eyes on the floor like he was waiting for trouble. Adrian saw Bianca smile at her reflection and talk sweetly at brunch. But when she turned to the kids, her tone shifted quick, cold, almost rehearsed. He started to wonder, was this life real, or was his family slipping deeper into someone else's shadows? It didn't help that the mansion sat on Lake Washington, a place where the super-rich built sprawling homes with robot kitchens and secret garden paths. Adrian had worked his entire life for this, but now the walls felt like a cage. He noticed how every toy, every book was arranged with scary precision. Even Camila Reyes, the housekeeper, moved carefully, sneaking extra fruit into Noah's lunchbox, straightening Ava's blanket after Bianca left. Adrian realized that when truth goes silent, revenge grows louder, and someone always begins to question what's hiding just out of sight. Ava was 7, a child who used to draw wild animals in neon colors. Now, her art was missing. Bianca said she'd put it somewhere safe. But Adrian found the sketches stuffed in the trash next to a broken mug. He picked up a piece. The only color left was a pale gray, the outlines fading, almost erased. When he asked Ava, she just shrugged and said nothing. Adrian's chest tightened. The truth was more than an idea here. It was something you had to dig out, bit by bit, from the mess. The shadows in the house were getting longer. He started writing notes in his phone. Who moved the bear? Why was the clock frozen? Noah, small for 3, never let that bear stray more than an inch from him. When Bianca tried to take it, he shrieked, forcing Camila to intervene with calm words and gentle hands. Bianca rolled her eyes, one more little problem to fix. But Adrian remembered the promise he'd made years ago. Protect the kids, even when it got hard. Now he realized that promises are tested most when the truth feels farthest away, beaten down by shadows and smoothed over by revenge. Every morning, Adrian sat at the kitchen counter, pretending to scroll through emails. All the while, he watched Bianca move through her rituals, measuring out breakfast, frowning at crumbs, barking at Ava and Noah until order returned. Camila stayed silent, doing her best to comfort the kids when Bianca's anger spilled over. Adrian made mental notes. The way Ava hid her hands, the way Noah's eyes darted around. These were signs. The truth isn't always loud, but it nags at your gut until you pay attention. Bianca hosted brunches for Seattle's society queens. Between clinking glasses and staged photos, Adrian saw his family recede. Ava's voice shrunk to a whisper whenever Bianca's friends were near, and Noah refused to leave the hallway. The mansion became a stage for Bianca's version of Perfection Everything magazine ready. Smiles locked in place, all fear swept under designer rugs. Adrian could spot new cracks forming in the foundation. He knew that truth must be stronger than revenge to withstand pressure like this, but it was up to him to prove it. Late at night, the house was so quiet, Adrian could hear the water moving against the shore. He thought of his own childhood, of promises made and broken, and how revenge had ruined more than one good thing. He didn't want that fate for Ava or Noah, but he didn't know what else to do. Sometimes Camila left him tea, warm and sweet. She thanked him for caring, her voice hinting at things she'd seen, things Adrian suspected but couldn't name. One evening, Eva blurted out, "Rules change when you're not here, Dad." Adrian sat up straight, alarmed. That 7-word truth unspooled every doubt he'd buried. Bianca smiled in the doorway, but her eyes flashed with annoyance. Adrian decided then he wouldn't wait for proof to come to him. He would chase every shadow until the truth was too bright to ignore. Adrian resolved to gather evidence not for revenge, not to hurt Bianca, but to set things right. He made plans to stay close without being seen, checking on the kids, listening for clues. At night, he mapped out every action, every look, every word spoken in anger or fear. He recorded memories, so if the worst happened, he'd be ready. As the days dragged on, Adrian saw that even in the quietest homes, truth works its way back to the surface. Shadows stretch, but the light always finds a way in. Revenge might seem tempting in the dark, but what matters is giving innocence a chance to breathe again. Adrian kept pushing forward one step at a time, dodging distractions, focusing only on his kids. These days, the house was never truly dark. Even as the family hung by a thread, Adrian felt sparks of hope, small moments, when Camila smiled, when Ava drew a single bright star, when Noah laughed. The truth stood firm against the shadows, promising that nothing could dim what was real. Adrian didn't know how or when real justice would come, but he knew he couldn't stand aside and let revenge take over. Now, as the story begins, ask yourself what details in your own life might be clues, hidden truths waiting to be noticed. What shadows are you willing to step through for the sake of honesty? If this chapter resonates with you, let it sit for a moment. And if you feel moved even just a little, show it in your own way, like a nod, a quietly shared smile. Sometimes supporting the truth is the biggest step anyone can take. It's how light grows stronger than any shadow. Adrian Cole stepped into Marcus Bell's office, 13 floors above downtown Seattle. The city stretched out below chrome glass, rain, all bustle and intelligence. Marcus was the kind of friend you trusted with secrets. Sharp, direct, but deeply loyal. Today, Adrian carried tension inside him. The kind that twisted his stomach and cut through morning optimism like a cold wind off the sound. He didn't bother with pleasantries. Marcus could see it in his eyes, the guilt, the creeping fear, every heavy silence pouring out of Adrian's handshake. "You need advice?" Marcus said, sliding a mug of black coffee across the desk. "Not just legal advice, I gather." Adrian nodded, feeling the strange safety that comes from talking to someone who knows when you re-hide in a truth. Shadows never linger long in Marcus's office. People came to him for solutions, but often they left just a bit more honest than when they'd arrived. Adrian hesitated, then spoke. He described the changes in Ava and No Other, new timidity, the careful way they moved when Bianca was near, the way Ava spoke in code about rules changing. Marcus listened, brow furrowing, tapping a fountain pen against his notebook. "You said you haven't seen anything direct," Marcus pointed out. "But you know your gut is telling you something." Adrian nodded, torn between loyalty and suspicion. Truth twisted between them, uncomfortable and bright. He admitted thinking about revenge, if only as a way to push Bianca out. But Marcus warned him against letting shadows make the decisions. "If you want justice for your kids, you do it for truth, not revenge. Revenge only drags everyone back into the dark." There was a heaviness in the room, a tension that comes from fearing you've waited too long, from hoping the truth will surface before the shadows take over. Marcus leaned forward, dropping all pretense. "If you're right, you need evidence." She's playing her game, high society, public image, storybook branches, but a judge will need proof, not feelings. Adrian tapped his fingers on the desk, silent, the urge for action pitted against the risk of making a wrong move. Marcus detailed the dangers of secret investigations, the real risk that Bianca could twist the narrative, paint Adrian as paranoid. "Whatever you do," Marcus cautioned, "don't bring personal revenge into this. Shadows thrive on rumors. Truth, when handled smarter ways, wins in the end. They work through scenarios." Marcus outlined the nuts and bolts of custody law, how emotional manipulation often falls through bureaucratic cracks unless caught on tape or documented. Adrian asked about trackers, recordings, even hiring a private investigator, but Marcus shook his head. "If you go that route, keep everything professional, above board. Don't confront her. Don't play the kind of games she loves." Adrian felt the dilemma. Doing nothing risked. Ava and Noah slipping further into shadows. Moving too fast could lose them entirely. Marcus handed Adrian a folder. Inside were lists of child advocacy services, counselors, and private agencies trusted by courts. Adrian scanned each line, weighing every possible step. Nothing about the process promised revenge, just diligence and a slow, steady climb toward the truth. The meeting stretched through lunch. Marcus told stories of other families who'd fallen into cycles of retaliation, how justice eventually came to those who refused to compromise honesty for anger. "Your priority is keeping them safe," Marcus said. "Act with truth. Leave revenge for people with nothing left to lose." Adrian thanked him, pocketing the advice. The folder wanting the guidance, but more wanting hope. Back on the street, Adrian moved through crowds with Marcus's words ringing in his ears. Rain spattered the pavement, blurring headlights and echoing his own muddled thoughts. He imagined Bianca's next party, Ava silent, Noah withdrawn. He pictured Camila's steady hands holding everything together, wondered how to protect his children without exposing them to more harm. He resolved every action must lean toward truth, every risk measured by the potential for healing, not for payback. Shadows remained tempting, but Adrian refused their call, instead chasing only the facts that would bring Ava and Noah into the light. That afternoon, Adrian sat alone again, reviewing every note from Marcus. He made plans, contacts to follow, time to invest in watching, listening, gathering what matters. Truth became his rallying cry. He held tight to the idea that even in a city built on clouds and illusion, his family deserved a horizon cleared of shadows. Marcus checked in by text, reminding Adrian to document, not dramatize. Adrian smiled, grateful. This battle would be long, but he didn't have to fight it alone. Revenge lost its power in the daylight. Justice, fueled by truth, gathered strength. Sometimes, the loudest drama isn't the argument, it's the quiet handshake, the friend who won't let you take the easy way out. Adrian Cole now had more than suspicion. He had steps forward, guardrails for when anger or fear tried to control the story. He checked the clock, remembered the frozen hands from the mansion. He resolved to reset the time both literally and metaphorically. He added a new section to his notes, titling it simply, "What Would Marcus Do?" Before making any move, he'd test it against honesty, against the cold logic of daylight. As dusk crept over Seattle, Adrian realized that sometimes the greatest revenge is showing how truth outlasts even the longest shadow. He pictured Ava and Noah's future urn, where laughter could return, where secrets weren't needed, where justice was more than a word tossed around after brunch. Walking home, he passed children playing in the rain, watched their easy joy, their utter lack of fear. Adrian promised himself, whatever happened next, he would pursue clarity, light, and a peace that can't be stolen. He'd prove that truth always and forever wins over the dark. But stories like this don't unfold alone. They depend on witnesses, on shared insight, on people willing to say what others can't. So if any of this rings familiar, take a moment to share your own thoughts down below. Every comment matters. It's how small truths grow into big change. Sometimes a single insight can shine brighter than any shadow. Adrian Cole sat in his home office late one Tuesday, staring at airline tickets he'd never used. The plan was simple. On paper tell Bianca he was flying to Singapore for a week-long tech summit, then disappear into his own city as someone else entirely. Simple, yes, but the kind of simple that tests every nerve and forces you to question what truth means when you're reliving a lie to find it. He opened a burner laptop, set up a fake email account, and booked a hotel room under a different name. Every click felt deliberate, like laying bricks for a wall between who he was and who he needed to become. The shadows in his mind whispered that this was revenge, petty, dangerous, maybe even foolish. But Adrian pushed back. Revenge is acting out of hate. This was acting out of love, out of the need to pull his children back into the light. By Thursday, Adrian had sourced everything. Goodwill provided worn jeans, faded plaid shirts, and a canvas jacket that smelled faintly of diesel and old rain. He bought cheap work boots, scuffed them with sandpaper, and practiced walking with a slower Gatler CEO stride, more blue-collar shuffle. In the mirror, he barely recognized himself. Adding a trimmed beard, a baseball cap, and wireframe glasses, Adrian Cole vanished. In his place stood Oliver Cruz, a day laborer looking for steady work. The transformation wasn't just cosmetic. Adrian studied the mannerisms of the landscapers who'd worked his property over the years, how they held tools, the way they nodded instead of speaking, the quiet respect mixed with careful distance. Truth required detail. Shadows thrived on carelessness. He contacted a small landscaping agency on the edge of town, one that hired temporary workers without deep background checks. Using a friend's recommendation and a fabricated resume, Adrian Oliver secured a 2-week gig. The agency dispatcher mentioned needing someone for a lakeside mansion in the city. Adrian felt his pulse quicken, but kept his voice steady, humble. "I'll take whatever you got, ma'am. Just need the work." She sent him the address, his own home. Bianca had requested extra help for the gardens ahead of her next charity event. She wanted everything pristine, hedges trimmed, flower beds refreshed, weeds eliminated. Adrian almost laughed at the irony. His wife was hiring him unknowingly to dig up the truth buried in their own backyard. Friday morning, Adrian kissed Ava and Noah goodbye, his heart heavy with the weight of the lie. Eva clung to his leg a moment longer than usual. "When will you be back, Dad?" she asked, her voice small and uncertain. "1 week, sweetheart," he promised, brushing her hair back. "Then everything will be better." Noah hugged his teddy bear tighter, watching with wide eyes. Adrian locked the image in his mind. Fuel for the days ahead. Proof that the truth was worth every shadow he'd have to walk through. Bianca barely looked up from her phone, waving him off with a distracted smile. "Safe travels, darling. Don't forget to bring me something nice from Singapore." Adrian nodded, grabbed his suitcase empty except for a change of clothes, and walked out the front door, knowing he'd be back through the service entrance before sunset. The rented motel room was small, dingy, and perfect. Adrian stacked his CEO wardrobe in a locked duffel, laid out Oliver Cruz's gear, and reviewed his plan one more time. He'd arrive at the mansion Monday morning. Introduced by the agency as a temporary gardener, he'd keep his head down, work the grounds, observe everything, and most importantly listen. Camilla would likely recognize him first, but Adrian trusted her discretion. If anyone could keep a secret for the sake of the kids, it was her. He thought of Marcus's warning, "Don't let revenge make your decisions." Adrian repeated it like a mantra. Centering himself, this wasn't about punishing Bianca. It was about rescuing Ava and Noah from her control. The truth, when finally revealed, would do the heavy lifting. Shadows only had power when no one turned on the lights. Saturday and Sunday blurred together. Adrian practiced his new identity buying groceries as Oliver, speaking less, smiling less, blending into the backdrop of everyday Seattle. He stopped at a hardware store, picked up a notebook and a small voice recorder no bigger than a USB drive. If he caught Bianca on tape, Marcus could use it. Evidence, not accusations. Truth, not revenge. He also reached out to a trusted colleague who agreed to field calls and emails, posing as Adrian on the ground in Singapore. The performance had to be flawless one slip, and Bianca would know. Adrian couldn't afford mistakes. His children's safety depended on his ability to become invisible. Monday arrived gray and drizzly, classic Pacific Northwest weather. Adrian, now fully Oliver Cruz, pulled up to the mansion-esque service gate. In a beat-up Honda Civic, he de-rented off Craigslist. His heart hammered as he rang the bell. Bianca answered via intercom, her voice crisp and businesslike. "You're the new gardener?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am," Adrian replied, deepening his voice slightly, adding a hint of an accent. "Oliver Cruz, here to work." The gate buzzed open. Adrian drove in slowly, parking near the tool shed. From this angle, the mansion looked different, less like home, more like a fortress. He grabbed his gear, walked to the garden beds, and got to work. Within minutes, he saw Camila through the kitchen window. Their eyes met briefly. She froze, recognition flashing across her face, then quickly looked away. Adrian exhaled. She understood. The mission had begun. For the next few hours, Adrian worked the soil-trimmed hedges and listened. Bianca's voice carried through open windows sharp commands to Ava, impatient sighs at Noah's questions. Adrian's jaw tightened, but he kept moving, kept his hands busy. Every word, every tone, every moment of tension, he absorbed it all, storing it like evidence in a courtroom of his mind. By dusk, Oliver Cruz had become real. Adrian had stepped through the shadow of his own life and emerged on the other side, ready to uncover the truth that hid in plain sight. The hardest part wasn't the disguise or the deception, was holding back the urge to rush in, to confront, to let revenge guide his hand. But Adrian knew better. The truth would win as long as he stayed patient. As the rain picked up and the mansion's lights flickered on, Adrian packed his tools and headed back to the motel. Tomorrow, the real work would begin, not in the garden, but in the quiet spaces between words, where shadows reveal what they've been hiding all along. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is step into the unknown for the ones we love. If this chapter moves you, don't keep it to yourself. Pass it along to someone who might need to hear it. Sharing the truth is how shadows lose their grip. Let others see what you've seen. The early morning in Lake Washington's mansion brought another quiet, colorless sunrise. Oliver Cruz worked alone by the west garden, where hydrangeas sagged with last night's rain. Inside, Camila Reyes moved like a shadow, her routine built on caution, empathy, and a silent promise to protect Ava and Noah. While Bianca barked orders about breakfast, Camila subtly passed a slice of apple to Noah under the table, shielding him from Bianca's critical gaze. Ava watched with wide, hopeful eyes. Adrian, still deep in his gardener persona, witnessed it all from just beyond the window. His respect for Camila growing with every act of gentle resistance. Truth doesn't always roar. Sometimes it tiptoes in tucked inside kindness, fighting the long shadow of cruelty with small acts of rebellion. Later that day, Bianca stormed into the hallway, fuming that Ava's shoes were muddy. She snapped at Camila, demanding an explanation. Camila calmly explained the children had played in the garden after chores were finished, her voice steady, accepting blame to redirect Bianca's anger away from the kids. Adrian scribbled a note on his pad. Camila absorbs conflict. He wasn't alone in fighting for the truth to conquer the shadows. And Camila's tactics, so quiet, so selfless, were living proof. Revenge seemed tempting after watching Bianca's tantrums, but Adrian realized that true justice would grow stronger through allied hearts, not explosive outbursts. Camila's strategy reminded him of moves on a chessboard, each pawn carefully placed to shield the king. Each kindness a protective gambit against darkness. At lunchtime, Bianca tossed Noah's teddy bear in the trash for encouraging weakness. Ava began to cry, Camila quickly soothing her with whispered Spanish lullabies and guiding Noah to recover his precious toy before Bianca returned. Adrian observed, grateful and guilty. Why had he missed such hardship before? He saw now that Camila operated in the liminal space between fear and courage, preserving scraps of childhood where they could survive. He jotted down every covert handoff, every gentle word offered in defiance of Bianca's rules. The truth was building, piece by piece, brightening against the shadows that once felt impenetrable. Revenge lost its appeal. The stronger drive now was gratitude. Camila's steady presence made the fight possible, showing Adrian the power of standing guard for the vulnerable. During Bianca's afternoon meltdown about a misplaced vase, Camila stepped between her and Ava, protecting the girl from being berated. Bianca spat words like daggers, but Camila didn't flinch, a sturdy shield made of compassion and resolve. Adrian, hidden in plain sight, felt old anger surge. But Marcus's advice rang true. Document, don't confront. Let truth shape the outcome, not fleeting revenge. Camilla's loyalty was a lifeline, grounding Adrian's mission in something nobler than punishment alone. He watched her embrace Ava after Bianca stormed away, promising safety with a soft touch and a quiet smile. By dusk, after Bianca had left for her social club, the mansion filled with the gentle sounds of Camilla humming as she tucked Ava into bed and made Noah laugh again. Adrian lingered outside long after the chores were done, hoping to catch Camilla's eye. When their glances met, he offered a subtle nod, a wordless pact. They were not alone in fighting the shadows. Truth was a shared goal, and the future would be built on the alliance formed by those acts of silent rebellion. Camilla understood, wordlessly assuring Adrian that she'd keep watching, keep caring, no matter how dark Bianca's shadows stretched. If you see yourself in Camillo quietly protecting, quietly resisting, let your own story fuel the battle for truth in the face of darkness. Share a memory, offer a supportive word, or just hold space for someone who needs it. Sometimes the most powerful guardians are invisible, and sometimes simply subscribing to the journey means you become part of the shield that pushes shadows away for good. The motel room was small, square, and anonymous, a place where even the wallpaper tried to forget its history. Adrian Cole dropped his gardening tools in a heap and sank onto the stiff mattress, exhausted from a day spent weeding and watching. His hands were blistered, muscles sore from labor he hadn't known since college summers. But the ache was nothing compared to the burden he carried inside. Each night, when the disguise came off and he was just Adrian again, waves of guilt crashed over him. He stared at the water-stained ceiling, replaying every moment of Bianca's cruelty, every subtle act of kindness from Camilla, every look of fear or longing from Ava and Noah. The shadows he'd ignored for so long now pressed in around him, heavier with each heartbeat. On the motel desk sat a simple spiral notebook. Adrian turned its pages slowly, adding details, the sugar on the counter, Camilla's Spanish lullabies, the way Ava flinched when Bianca entered the room. He filled line after line with memories of his first wife, the gentle way she'd cared for the children, her habit of leaving encouragement notes in Ava's backpack. Adrian wrote about promises made at her funeral. Protect the kids at all costs. Never let the world grow dark around their hearts. But as the words sprawled across the page, he couldn't ignore the reality. Truth slips away easily when you're re-blinded by grief or new love, and revenge forgets what kindness looks like. The pain of a father isn't always visible. Sometimes it's just a father sitting alone, writing because he can't sleep, hoping the truth will win against the shadow of guilt. Every flashback stung. Adrian remembered the day they set up the playroom together, Noah's tiny hand in his Ava's squeals as she colored lions and rockets on the walls. Those memories felt distant now, washed out by Bianca's rules and the silence that consumed the house. Adrian's guilt clawed at him, whispering that he'd failed both children by not seeing the signs sooner. He'd let shadow take root where truth used to live, and now he was racing to undo damage he should have prevented it. But regret rarely heals. It only fuels the hunger for revenge. Adrian forced himself to focus on action instead. He made lists every night, things to watch, things to record, things to say when the time finally came to bring Bianca's shadow into the light. He removed his shirt and checked his back in the cracked bathroom mirror. New calluses, dirt ground into his skin, shoulders hunched from labor. Disguise had become armor, but his resolve was battered. Adrian pressed his palm against the glass, wondering if his children would recognize him after all this, if they'd see the pain he carried on their behalf. Shadows made him invisible, but truth kept his mission alive. He messaged Marcus, sending updates and asking for advice, grateful for every word of encouragement. Marcus replied, "Stay close to the facts. You're doing this for them, not for closure." Revenge would feel good for a moment, but Adrian knew the long game was justice, and justice needed patience and accountability. The nights blurred together. Adrian grabbed food on the go, barely tasting any of it, living on coffee, anxiety, and hope. He sometimes called Ava, never mentioning the disguise, just asking about her day, listening for clues. She spoke softly, wary of Bianca nearby. Adrian reassured her the best he could, promising that soon everything would be safe again. Late at night, he listens to recordings, cataloging Bianca's words, piecing together a timeline. "Children, follow my rules now," she'd said. Weakness isn't tolerated. Adrian didn't want his children learning that darkness is strength. Truth had to win. The only way to break the cycle of cruelty was to expose the shadow for what it was, call it out, let daylight in. He started researching child therapists, support services, and legal protections. The guilt kept him moving, afraid that waiting would cost his family even more. Adrian wrote a letter to Camila, thanking her not to be delivered, just as a testament to her bravery. He resolved to reward loyalty with loyalty, truth with truth. Maybe someday, when the house was safe, he could confess what he'd seen, what he'd missed, and work together for real healing. Every parent faces regret. Adrian learned that redemption begins with a choice to fight for the next sunrise, not just dwell on the last sunset. At the end of every exhausting day, Adrian recorded a message to himself. Don't stop. Don't back down. They need you. Revenge faded in importance. The pain, the guilt, the longing, they all pointed back to one thing, the promise that truth is worth more than any shadow, and that doing what's right means facing your failures, not running from them. If you've ever felt the weight of regret, know this: it's never too late to change course. What matters most is holding on to hope and fighting for the truth, one step at a time. If you found meaning here, consider sharing your reflections or struggles in the comments. Sometimes the journey of one becomes the encouragement for many. That's how truth grows stronger and how shadows finally begin to disappear. Morning arrived with a restless wind, carrying whispers across Lake Washington from the distant city. Oliver Cruz Adrian's borrowed identity moved quietly through the dew-damp grass, keeping close to the edges of the house. The real work now was more than digging soil. It was gathering the truth, one piece at a time, from the shadows that clung to every window and doorway. Adrian slipped his tiny recorder into the chest pocket of his work shirt, making sure the microphone faced inside toward the kitchen and patio. Camila eyed him as he passed, her look sharper, silent sign she knew what he was up to. And didn't he plan on interfering? Bianca paced the main hall, foam clutched in hand, barking orders at Ava and Noah about their posture, tidiness, and lack of respect for rules. Adrian pressed the record button and waited, every word Bianca spat, feeding the evidence pile. He scribbled details into his notebook. Ava, obedient as always. Noah's wary gaze, Camila stepping in with a gentle correction when Bianca got too harsh. Adrian felt the tension spike each time Bianca uttered, "Fear works better than love in this house." It was an ugly mantra, repeated just often enough to become a thread in the fabric of family life. Throughout the day, Adrian made every effort to be invisible. He fixed irrigation lines, clipped rose veins, positioned himself to overhear as much as he could. Bianca's cruelties seemed almost casual, a cutting remark about Camila's accent here, an imperious correction for Ava's posture there. Each time Adrian wrapped the recorder in his hand, angling for a clearer catch of voice and sentiment. He noted Bianca's phrase, "Children must learn discipline before they earn affection." The shadow she cast over the house deepened, but now Adrian had proof. By early afternoon, Adrian noticed something: Noah constantly glancing toward the bushes along the fence line where Bianca had once threatened to toss his teddy bear. Ava traced nervous circles on the patio table when Bianca drew near, her artwork confined to gray tones and scribbled lines. Adrian moved closer, catching Bianca scolding, "If you cry, I'll give you something to cry about." Each recorded moment was truth woven from pain, evidence that hurt but couldn't be denied. During his break, Adrian reviewed the sound files. Bianca's voice rang out clear. Threats, dismissive laughter, manipulation. He made backup copies, hiding them in his locked car and sending snippets to Marcus via encrypted text. Marcus replied, "Document everything. Stay objective. The more facts, the stronger your case." Adrian felt the burden lighten slightly. Revenge wasn't the goal now. The truth was, and for the first time, light seemed a little closer. Camila kept her promise, supporting Ava and Noah through the worst moments. She slipped extra snacks into lunch bags and left drawings taped underneath the children's beds. Secret encouragement only they were meant to find. Adrian observed her vigilance, adding every small kindness to his growing catalog of resistance. Together, even without words, they created pockets of hope in the mansion's heavy silence. When Bianca left for an evening dinner downtown, the house breathed easier. Adrian joined Camila for a whispered conversation on the back porch. She confessed the extent of Bianca's manipulations, her own fears of losing her job, and her commitment to the children's safety. Adrian thanked her, promising that soon the truth would take center stage. He wanted Bianca held accountable, out of anger, but so Ava and Noah would finally be free to trust, laugh, and create in the sunlight. Shadows had dominated for too long. He reminded Camila, the truth always wins. That's how we beat the darkness. Together, that night. Adrian catalogued every shred of evidence in his motel room. Time stumps, phrases, sudden outbursts, Camila's interventions. He organized them in folders so Marcus could build a legal case, careful to keep the story honest and objective. Recording Bianca's cruelty stung, but Adrian stayed focused, each file a stepping stone toward justice. As he fell asleep, he repeated, "Just a few more days. Hold on, the truth will break these shadows." If you're reading this, ask yourself, how many times have you let a shadow linger where light should be? Maybe you've witnessed a moment that needs to be preserved, not buried. Don't underestimate the power of collecting details, filing away every truth one day. It might be the key to someone's freedom. If you connect with these struggles, share the story, spread the truth. That's how, one witness at a time, shadows lose and families find peace. Dawn broke over Lake Washington with a murky gold light, a strange kind of beauty that felt at odds with what Adrian Cole knew the day would bring. The mansion was tense from the moment Bianca woke up. Her temper had been building, fed by suspicion that someone inside was undermining her authority. Adrian, still cloaked in the role of Oliver Cruz, tended garden beds near the kitchen window, listening intently. Bianca's voice was sharper than usual, brittle with accusation. "Camila, I want to know why these children never seem to follow my rules," she demanded. Camila, steady as ever, responded softly, "Children need time, ma'am." The answer only fueled Bianca's anger. Shadows grew longer across the table. At lunchtime, Bianca cornered Camila near the pantry. "You think you're clever, don't you? I see what you're doing, always stepping in. Making them respect you instead of me." Her words oozed contempt, the threat barely disguised. Adrian recorded everything, his heart pounding. Bianca leaned in, voice dripping menace. "If you interfere again, I'll make sure you never work in Seattle. Not ever. I'll ruin your reputation, ruin you." Camila's face barely flinched, but her hands trembled as she chopped carrots. The truth of her fear written in the shiver of her fingertips. Adrian scribbled a note. "Bianca threatens Camila's livelihood and identity proximity. Revenge would have been swift." Adrian longed to throw open the door, expose Bianca right there, but the evidence was building. The power of truth was getting stronger. Each new threat recorded meant the shadows were closer to being swept away. That afternoon, Camila went about her work, eyes down, voice gentle with Ava and Noah. and yet a sadness lingered, a palpable weight that Adrian could see in the set of her shoulders. Camila coached Ava on a math worksheet, quietly assuring her she was smart and brave. "Don't worry," she whispered. "Good always wins in the end." For Adrian, these words landed like absolution. He marveled at Camila's resilience, her refusal to leave the children defenseless, even in the face of threats. Bianca, meanwhile, made a series of calls to the agency, to her friends at charity events, dropping hints about problem staff. The walls of the mansion felt tighter than ever. Adrian moved through his gardening tasks, making sure to be present, visible should Camila need backup, invisible enough to keep recording every detail. Near sundown, Bianca exploded over a minor mishap. Eva spilled milk on the marble counter. Bianca berated her mercilessly, ignoring Camila's attempts to explain. The children's faces crumpled with anxiety. Camila stood between Bianca and Eva, her tone unyielding but respectful, sheltering the girl from further humiliation. Bianca cut her a look that threatened everything she held dear: job, future, safety. And then, as if to punctuate the moment, Bianca called the agency and threatened to fire Camila for insubordination. Adrian caught it all on tape, the sharp edge of revenge burning hot behind every word. But he held his ground. To win, he needed truth, not retaliation. After Bianca left for her evening appointment, Camila sank into a kitchen chair, rubbing her eyes. Adrian approached as Oliver, thanking her quietly for her courage. Camila nodded, grateful for the support, her voice thick with emotion. "I stay because they need me," she murmured. Adrian promised, "We won't let the shadows win. Not this time." The pact was sealed not just with words, but with evidence, resolve, and silent hope. As night fell, Adrian sent Marcus new audio files, his notes growing longer and more precise. The case was growing, fed by every threat, every moment of power wielded cruelly. Marcus replied, "Protection is paramount. Keep gathering. Keep building." Revenge felt less urgent with each new piece of evidence. Now it was about safeguarding Camila and the children for good. If you've ever stood up against a threat and refused to let darkness prevail, you know it takes more than courage. It takes faith in the truth and faith in each other. If this chapter resonates, let it be your moment to subscribe, to join the alliance of everyday protectors, and to keep believing that together we can outlast any shadow anywhere. That's how real victories happen, and how the truth always, always wins. The sky hung low and gray over Lake Washington, promising rain but delivering only tension. Inside the mansion, every breath felt heavier. Adrian Cole, still walking in Oliver Cruz's boots, sensed the storm that was about to break, a collision of truth and shadow. Fueled by countless days of cruelty and kindness, survivors' clutch close, brunch preparations, had transformed the house into an arena. Polished silver porcelain cups, carefully folded napkins, a parade of Seattle's elite just hours away. Bianca barked orders, demanding perfection. Ava nervously wiped down the counters, Noah held his bear while Camila moved quietly, steadfast and watchful. As the guests arrived, society women with glossy hair and sharper tongues, the pressure inside climbs. Adrian worked garden beds near the patio, his recorder on eyes on every detail. The children marched in matching outfits, faces wearing forced smiles. The truth murmured in anxious movements. Shadows stretched long beneath designer shoes. To Ava, carrying a tray of tea, caught her sleeve and sent a delicate cup crashing to the floor. Porcelain shattered. Silence hung thick. Bianca's face twisted in rage, heat radiating as she stalked toward her stepdaughter. "Look what you've done. You ruined everything." Guests gasped. Adrian felt his heart slam against his ribs, knowing this was it's the moment all the evidence pointed toward. Bianca raised her hand, fury burning. But Camila jumped between her and Ava, shielding the girl wholly, the picture of maternal courage. The slap rang out, harsh and unexpected. Landing across Camila's cheek, her defiance earned pain, but her stance saved a child from further harm. Ava sobbed freely. Noah cried out. Guests murmured in shock, torn between manners and moral outrage. Adrian clenched the recorder tight. Revenge sang in his veins, urging him to act. But he forced patience. This was not his scene yet, not until truth could be shown clean and clear to all. Bianca's voice shook as she tried to regain composure in front of her carefully curated audience. She snapped at Camila, threatening termination and disgrace. Camila stood firm, radiating quiet strength. Adrian took mental snapshots for his growing case file. Several guests excused themselves, some shaking their heads, the rest too stunned to react. The shadows cast by Bianca's reign had stretched too long. But today, the lives intertwined within her household had reached their breaking point. The burden Adrian carried as father, witness, and avenger pressed upon him, urging decisive action. When the crowd thinned, Adrian retreated to the garden, replaying the confrontation in his head. The slap, the children's fear, Camila's resilience, it was all there, proof that cruelty stands in opposition to love, and that truth, when finally revealed, would banish even the deepest darkness. Revenge was close, so close he could taste it, but he held on for one more critical piece of proof. He texted Marcus. It happened. Witnesses present. Audio captured. Next step. Marcus replied. Prepare everything. Stay grounded. The time for daylight is near. Adrian watched Camila comfort Ava and Noah, promising safety as she wiped away tears. The children clung to her, desperate for tenderness. Even some guests consoled the children privately, quietly condemning Bianca's actions. Adrian's resolve solidified. The truth was ready to become unmissable. Shadows had tried to hold the upper hand, but now, with the world watching, the reckoning was at hand. If this story left you breathless, if it drew you into the fight for justice, share it with someone who needs a reminder of what courage really looks like. Sometimes the most dramatic moments hinge on a single act, a single witness. When we share, we multiply the reach of truth and shrink the power of shadows together. After the storm of the brunch, the mansion lingered in fragile silence. Guests had left, their whispered shock trailing behind them like bits of broken glass. The gardens were still, save for Adrian still in Oliver Cruz's battered jacket, still holding onto every ounce of disguise. But inside, everything had changed. Bianca was pacing the kitchen, making frantic calls, trying to spin the story. Ava and Noah clung to Camila, still shaken. Adrian walked slowly to the terrace, every step carrying the full weight of his secret. With the mansion staff and a few remaining guests watching, Adrian placed his shears down on the stone tiles and straightened his back. Bianca noticed him, scowling. "Get back outside," she ordered, voice still trembling with rage. But Adrian met her, eye steady, unblinking. He removed his cap, peeled off the gray beard, and let his voice return to its familiar cadence. "No, Bianca," he said calmly. "I think it's time everyone here heard the truth." The room froze. Camila recognized him instantly. Relief and surprise flooded her eyes. Some guests gasped, others whispered. Adrian reached into his pocket and took out the recorder, holding the device up for everyone to see. "I never left Seattle. I've been here the entire time, watching, listening, seeing what really happens in this house when nobody is supposed to be looking." Bianca sputtered, searching for a counter. Adrian pressed play. The audio flooded the room. Bianca's threats, her cruel words, her mantra that fear works better than love. She tried to shout over it, but Adrian's stance was unwavering. For the first time, the shadows in the mansion had nowhere left to hide. "I trusted you," Adrian declared as the guests listened and murmured. "I wanted to believe you could bring light to this home, not darkness. But the truth always wins, Bianca, always. And now everyone can hear it." Marcus arrived, a folder of papers under his arm. Divorce papers, emergency court orders for protection, legal notices for Bianca's removal. The full force of truth crashed through the room, sweeping away every shadow Bianca had tried to command. She protested, tried to cry, even begged. Adrian didn't waver. Revenge had no place in this moment. It was justice, pure and simple, delivered for Ava, for Noah, for Camila, and for every promise left behind. Police arrived on the scene, summoned by a concerned guest. The process felt surreal, Bianca being escorted out, her empire falling apart, not in violence, but in quiet truth. Adrian hugged his children, tears finally allowed to flow. Camila offered him comfort, a silent understanding passing between them that they'd reached the end of darkness. As the sun set over Lake Washington, the mansion felt different. Not healed, but open for healing. Adrian thanked the guests who supported him, acknowledged Camila's courage, and promised never to let shadows take root again. If you've watched this journey unfold and felt the power of truth breaking through, take a moment, leave your thoughts below, share the story. Sometimes real change begins when the truth is spoken out loud, and revenge fades in the brilliance of what's right. This is how truth finally overcomes the shadows, and it's how new stories built on courage, hope, and fierce protection begin. Truth's reckoning, Bianca's fall, and justice, a heavy hush settled over the mansion as the last police car rolled away, leaving Adrian Cole alone in the entry hall. The terraced gardens shimmered under fragile evening light, their symmetry broken by the aftermath of the storm Bianca had unleashed. Eva and Noah clung to Camila, searching her eyes for reassurance and relief. Adrian sighed, relief mingling with exhaustion. A father at the crossroads of past mistakes and present courage. He paced slowly, replaying every moment from his hidden weeks, the cold calculations, the cruel words, the slap, the sobs in the garden. Truth wasn't just spoken, was proven, stamped in every witness's memory. Marcus Bell, loyal as ever, handed Adrian a thick folder. Emergency orders, Bianca's barred from contact. Everything's been processed. Marcus's tone held gravity, the kind that signaled not just a legal win, but genuine protection. Even so, Adrian felt the swirling mix, vindication, sadness, hope. Bianca had tried to manipulate the moment, crying before guests and police, but every recording, every diary note, stood as unshakable evidence. Ava, sensing the shift, knelt by her father. "Will she come back?" she whispered. Adrian knelt beside her, face open and honest. "Not anymore, sweetheart. We're safe." The words, simple as sunlight, carved through old wounds, a promise of renewal. News of Bianca's downfall spread quickly among Seattle's social circles. Some called to express shock. Others texted quietly in support. Adrian ignored the noise, focusing on what mattered, rebuilding safety, trust, and love beneath the shadowless roof. Camila sat with Ava and Noah, reading their favorite bedtime books, never once mentioning danger or deceit. The children's laughter, cautious but real, floated up the stairs, proof of healing. Adrian watched Camila and felt gratitude beyond words. Her loyalty had saved more than jobs, it had preserved childhood itself. Justice, Adrian realized, isn't just court orders or police reports. It lives in the everyday choices, protecting those who can't fight for themselves. Speaking out when silence is the easier path, documenting truth so shadows can't rewrite history. He spent hours organizing recordings and notes, sending Marcus everything needed for an airtight case. Revenge now was powerless, a fleeting ghost, replaced by steadfast justice, all rooted in the courage of bearing witness. The house's silence shifted. No more trembling before breakfast, no more hurried whispers in the hallway. Adrian sat with Ava and Noah over ravioli and Caesar salad, listening as Ava described her newest drawing, a garden bursting with color, every flower unique. Noah showed off his teddy bear, finally smiling wide. His protector returned from the trash. His world no longer ruled by fear. Adrian's heart ached for what they had lost, but burned brighter for what they de-regained. the chance to grow up without the weight of lies and cruelty clouding every sunrise. As dusk settled, Camila stepped onto the patio, joining Adrian with 2 mugs of tea. "You kept your promise," she said quietly. Adrian nodded. "We did it together." Her eyes sparkled in the half-light, signaling a bond formed not just in service, but in alliance, a lesson for anyone watching. Justice is built brick by brick, and truth demands steady, patient hands. That night, Adrian knelt in the garden where darkness once felt impenetrable. He breathed deeply, listening to distant laughter, letting the old aches dissolve beneath new peace. The future was uncertain, but hope was immediate, a tangible gift earned by refusing to let shadows win. He posted a note in the online parent community, sharing his story anonymously. The response was overwhelming, strangers offering support, others confessing their own battles. Adrian realized that justice is infectious, spreading from family to family, neighbor to neighbor, sparking change in places he'd never imagined. If you're reading now, let this story remind you, silence isn't safety, and ignoring shadows only lets them grow. When you gather evidence, speak up, and protect the ones who need you most, you redefine what real victory looks like. Maybe justice in your life feels out of reach. Maybe you've seen cruelty or manipulation and wondered what difference your voice could make. Let Adrian's journey push you forward. Don't wait for someone else to step up. You are the truth bringer, the light holder, the reason shadows recede. This isn't just the ending of one chapter, it's the start of a powerful new story. The final reckoning is coming, and your attention, your engagement, could be the difference between a fleeting triumph and a lasting legacy. If you felt this truth, do more than watch. Share your support. Add your comment. Become an active voice for justice and truth. Let the momentum build. Let the reward for Ava, Noah, Camila, and every child outshine the dark. The story's almost ready to bloom. Are you with us for the final step? At sunrise, over Lake Washington finally felt hopefully warm spread of gold that replaced the lingering shadows. Adrian Cole stood in the garden, dew sparkling on fresh blooms, the old terror and secrecy replaced by peace. The mansion itself seemed to breathe, its rooms quieter, but for the first time filled with a healing silence. Tava and Noah raced barefoot through the grass, shrieking with real laughter, while Camila watched, hands clasped over her heart, finally relaxing into the light. The path had never been easy. Camila, still a guest in the house, often struggled to trust Adrian completely after all the weeks of secret observation. Yet their connection grew stronger each day, forged not by romance, but by joint courage and the shared promise to never let darkness returning. Marcus dropped by with court papers confirming Bianca's permanent removal. True closure. Hard-won. Adrian scheduled therapy for himself and his children, determined that wounds received behind closed doors would not define their lives. Ava opened up about her lost drawings. Noah let go of fear. every conversation, every step into sunlight. Let the truth defeat yesterday's pain. Dinner became a ritual laver. Set the table. Noah chose the music. Camila brought extra dessert. Adrian read stories in the living room, sometimes breaking down as old memories surfaced. Sometimes Camila listened and reassured him as only a survivor can. The children flourished, their laughter no longer measured against someone else's anger. Adrian's guilt shifted to gratitude. He'd made mistakes but had chosen to fight, chosen the truth, chosen revenge only as a tool for justice. As the garden filled with friends and new energy, Adrian threw a celebration not for the fall of Bianca, but for the dawn of his family's reclamation. Guests from the community came with gifts and gentle words, honoring Camila's bravery and the children's resilience. Yet the greatest transformation was private. Ava spent hours drawing vivid scenes of a home full of love. Noah shared his stories with newfound confidence. Adrian watched Camila join in, unsure if romance might eventually blossom, but assured the foundation was honesty and healing. The story's reward was not loud. It came in quiet moments, child no longer flinching, a father forgiven, a caretaker praised. Justice was served, but Adrian realized the real victory was daily. Truth overcoming shadow, light reborn where cruelty once ruled. He shared a post online encouraging anyone trapped by secrets to hold tight, fight on. Messages poured in from new supporters and old friends, each a spark in the larger battle against darkness. As twilight gilded the lake, Adrian gazed at his children playing near the water, Camila chatting with neighbors, Marcus laughing at the dinner table. A new legacy was taking root, grown from courage and a relentless pursuit of what's right. Adrian stepped onto his porch and spoke directly to the audience, the silent witnesses who had traveled every chapter with him. This isn't the end. It's just the beginning of what's possible when truth is louder than shadows. If you've felt strengthened, moved, or seen by this journey, remember that your story matters too. Share your own truth, protect those you love, and let your voice multiply the impact for every family who needs courage, every survivor who longs for daylight, every viewer who now believes in the victory of justice. Do not miss what comes next. The struggle for truth and healing never stops, and the next journey promises even greater rewards. Subscribe, stay close, and prepare yourself. The biggest moment is always the one you choose to embrace. The mansion lights twinkled against a darkening sky. The garden brimmed with laughter. The future shone brighter than ever. That's where real stories begin, when you decide to step in, hold on, and never look away.